So let's turn to Hugh of Saint Victor now, writing quite a bit later. So Augustine writing at the tail end of the 4th century, early 5th century of the Common Era. Here you can see Hugh of Saint Victor's dates. He's after the turn of the first millennium, and he's a Saxon canon regular and theologian. And his work that's most pertinent here is called the Didascalicon. It's subtitled A Study on Reading. It's a foundational medieval treatise on the purpose and method of learning, especially interpretation of texts. And while the classical model used 4 levels or 4 senses of meaning of scripture, Hugh of Saint Victor employs a threefold division: the literal historical, the allegorical, and the moral tropological. So the anagogic is missing, interestingly, for Hugh of Saint Victor, and could be seen as rolled into the allegorical and moral. So Hugh of Saint Victor's basic position on interpreting scripture is that the literal or historical sense is the indispensable foundation, and he uses that metaphor of a foundation of a building. And he strongly emphasized a disciplined approach to exegesis that prioritized factual reality of the text. So this is a quote from Book 5, Chapter 2. First of all, it ought to be known that sacred scripture has 3 ways of conveying meaning, namely history, allegory, and tropology. To be sure, all things in the divine utterance must not be wrenched to an interpretation such that each of them is held to contain history, allegory, and tropology all at once. Even if a triple meaning can appropriately be assigned in many passages, nevertheless, it is either difficult or impossible to see it everywhere. So he's insisting that students must first master the literal and historical meaning of Scripture before moving on to deeper spiritual senses. And this is a response to dangers of excessive allegorical reading that had been occurring in Hugh of Saint Victor's own time. And this is a quote from the translator of Hugh of Saint Victor from the text I have displayed on the right. So Jerome Taylor says, his historical approach, careful to preserve the literal features of the biblical text, stands in contrast to that of William of Conches, who, approaching Genesis primarily as a physicist, seeks to reconcile revelation with the science of the day, particularly with the cosmogony of Plato's Timaeus. To do so, William is willing to interpret key features of the text allegorically and, from Hugh's point of view, irresponsibly. Thus, whereas William of Conches denies the existence of initial chaos and holds that the 6 days of creation must be taken figuratively, Hugh insists that chaos literally existed and that its ordering in an equally literal 6-day period is a mystery. So we have another quote here, which I won't go through, on the primacy of the literal in Hugh of Saint Victor. And now I'll turn to another key point, and this is a key point for esotericism and the history of esotericism, generally speaking, is that Hugh of Saint Victor wants to point out that the proper study of spiritual levels is for the few. So part of the danger that can happen is you get up this proliferation of crazy interpretations because everybody and anybody is maybe doing it, and this should be restricted to few geniuses. Now, this is, again, a position with respect to esoteric literature and the interpretation of esoteric literature that has its roots in the classics, Greek and Roman, as well as the oldest religious esotericism, where there's a the interpreting of these religious truths of scriptures is for the few. And philosophic esotericism of the Greeks, it's about protecting the few, the few philosophers from the many who are not going to get it. And that endures right up until the last 200 or 300 years with post-Enlightenment. We have a different sense of this. We no longer believe that there are a few that are reserved to understand these things. We've tried to democratize that, and that's fundamentally changed the practice of understanding literature and other texts as having multiple levels of meaning, as being purposefully hidden by the wise from the many so that it doesn't besmirch the truth or that truth does not harm them. Okay. So here's Hugh of Saint Victor's take on that point. Quote, after the reading of history, it remains for you to investigate the mysteries of allegories, in which I do not think there is any need of exhortation from me, since this matter itself appears worthy enough in its own right. Yet I wish you to know, good student, that the pursuit demands not slow and dull perceptions, but matured mental abilities, which, in the course of their searching, may so restrain their subtlety as not to lose good judgment in what they discern. Such food is solid stuff, and unless it be well chewed, it cannot be swallowed. You must therefore employ such restraint that, while you are subtle in your seeking, you may not be found rash in what you presume. Remembering what the psalmist says, he hath bent his bow and made it ready, and in it he hath prepared the instruments of death. You remember, I suppose, that I said above that divine scripture is like a building in which, after the foundation has first been laid, the structure itself is raised up. It is altogether like a building, for it too has its structure. For this reason, let it not irk us if we follow out the similitude a little more carefully. So the foundation is the literal, and then the nice structure above it are the higher allegorical and spiritual meanings. Pay attention now. I have proposed to you something contemptible to gapers, but worthy of imitation to those who understand. I want to highlight this notion that this is for a few, and the gapers will not get this, and it's contemptible to them. The foundation is in the earth, and it does not always have smoothly fitted stone. So the literal level is sometimes rough, and you can get by with not being too exact by measuring it out, so to speak. Whereas the superstructure rises above the earth and it demands a smoothly proportioned construction. Even so, the divine page, in its literal sense, contains many things which seem both to be opposed to each other and sometimes to impart something which smacks of the absurd or the impossible. But the spiritual meaning admits of no opposition. In it, many things can be different from one another, but none can be opposed. There we have, in the spiritual levels, we have finely cut stones that are perfectly measured and polished. And it's going to take a wise craftsman of interpretation to be able to see and see those stones. So that's Hugh of Saint Victor, an interesting figure in medieval literary theory.